I run a small boutique marketing growth agency called MVP. We work with B2B startups, tech companies, international ones. Most of our clients are based out of Israel, but we do work with a few international clients as well. And what we do is we do the full gambit of digital marketing, where it comes from like SEO and content and PPC and marketing automation and strategy, a layer of strategy on top. I think one of the major differences in moving from B2C to B2B, there's B2B, like the general industry, and then there's B2B software, B2B SaaS in the sense not of the technology, but in the sense of the business model. And this is where recurring revenue comes in and stuff like ARR, MRR. And so it's a little bit different than B2B as an industry, because when you're talking about planning and you're talking about planning based on revenue and income that's supposed to come into the company, when you have a SaaS business, the predictions of the revenue that will come in are pretty stable. And that's what you try to achieve. And this goes into how you price your SaaS business, if you price it based on usage or not, because that can create fluctuations in your ARR and in your MRR. So you try not to go based on usage. So it's interesting like to look at planning B2B versus B2C, but it's also interesting to look at planning for the year when it comes to SaaS B2B versus non-SaaS B2B, like service-based industries that are B2B or stuff like that that have more fluctuating income, have a much harder time planning for the year. Usually they will want to know what I think about their plan. That we usually have something already in place, a skeleton already in place of a plan that they think of for 2022. And what I try to help them, this is especially true for sales-led organizations, is I tell them it's okay to do a plan for marketing, but one of the big problems with sales-led organizations is the marketing sales alignment. It's a big topic. And one way to get that on the table and get that alignment aligned from the get-go is at the planning stage. When I consult heads of marketing departments on a yearly planning, I usually suggest that they get a target for the entire company from the CEO. This is our sales target in general. These are marketing KPIs. These are the sales targets for the entire company. And then ask the CEO and the VP sales, have a conversation, say, look, all right, what percentage of this pipeline is marketing expected to generate for sales? Right? Because sales have their own activities. Some organizations, outbound lead generation will be controlled by sales. What we're saying is, what percentage do you think inbound will take in this? And if outbound is also part of marketing, then get that too. And now you have a real target of this is what I'm supposed to generate as far as pipeline for sales. And I don't think you should be measured by that. It's ARR out of the whole ARR that the company is projected to produce. And then what percentage of that is supposed to be attributed back to marketing activities, and that's your lighthouse. But that is not your KPI. And I tell that to the VP marketing very clearly. You do not let that become your KPI. You have to have a KPI that you can control, and that is up to you 100%. And obviously that isn't. But from that, we can reverse engineer the process to get to our own KPI. We know what percentage of closed-won deals come out of opportunities. All right, so now we know how many opportunities we're supposed to generate. And then we know how many discovery calls, what the percentage of discovery calls turn into opportunities. Now we know how many discovery calls and we go back, and at the end of the day, it needs to come back down to the MQL. I know that if you're on LinkedIn a lot, then this is a topic of conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And I've chimed in there saying that you shouldn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. The MQL shouldn't get thrown out. There is issues, marketing sales alignments, no doubt there's issues there, but it's because the definition of an opportunity and the definition of an MQL are not 100% aligned. And that's why at the planning stage, you need to define exactly what the MQL is together with sales, together with the CEO, and have that kind of aligned with opportunity. It can't be the same as an opportunity, because then you're just basically targeting opportunities. It's got to be different, but it's got to be close. Can't be too far away. If you have a 5% conversion rate from MQLs to opportunities, that's not good. It needs to be something more reasonable. And this is where you can be data-driven. Look at your pipeline the previous year. Where was like a touch point where we're at 20%, we're at 15%. It's something that makes sense and that you can control and that you can bring in and that your marketing activities can control. And if you can't, then you got to ask for more of the pipeline to control more of the pipeline. If you say, all right, look, the only thing that makes sense is that marketing is responsible for discovery calls, then SDRs have to be a part of the marketing department. And that's something that I'm seeing with a lot of my clients, that there's like a shift, that the SDR team is moving underneath the VP marketing. And that's something that I think is a really good idea. I think it's a very good idea. I think there's less of an issue in the alignment, because what SDRs do is not far from what sales do. So there wouldn't be an issue of alignment if SDRs were a little bit more under the VP marketing. And I think that would take care of a lot of the alignment issues, and also allow marketing to have a KPI that sales gets and that the CEO likes. So I think that's a quick solution to a lot of problems. It's not just a silver bullet type of situation where you just do it and then everything's fine. Obviously, there's still work after that. But I think that's usually something that I suggest sales-driven organization. These are also the big sales-driven issues that we face, and they're definitely a part of planning, because it's a part of managing expectations. All right, so this is the plan, but don't come back to me in a month. This is the cohort. Let's have a look at the cohort and see how many opportunities we brought in. No, the opportunities are going to take time to deliver. We got to look at this in a quarterly way. So I think a lot of the planning is, you have your reports, you have your documents, and that's a good part of it. But another really good part of it is getting minds aligned, getting sales, marketing, C-levels aligned from where they are, from a mindset that this is how we should be looking at it. This is why we should be looking at it. This is what we should care about. And this is when we should care about that. And yeah, definitely aligning around that. And it's a tough conversation. Nobody really likes to have it, because and I work with a lot of Israeli companies, right? So you get 5 Israelis in a room, you have 9 opinions. So it's hard to get everybody on the same page, but it's something that we should try to do. Another part of the plan that I think is really important is, I think organizations also need to have a chief revenue officer. So if we talked about reorgs and stuff like that and bringing the SDRs under marketing, I think a chief revenue officer is a really important role. It needs to be somebody who is in charge of marketing and sales, and has that goal of just making sure that the whole funnel works, and instead of unclogging the entire pipeline, being able to say, this is the problem, this is what you guys need to do, and this is what you guys need to do. And instead of like sales saying, no, you guys need to do this, marketing saying, no, the problem is that you guys need to do this. There's somebody who's a responsible adult who just goes and say, look, guys, stop fighting. This is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. And CEOs are too busy to do that as an actual job. So it needs to be chief revenue officer. We're not running a direct response business. This is not e-commerce and people don't buy shoes. These are deals that can be $100,000, $200,000, a few $1 million a deal. These kind of deals take time to close. And if you come with that experience, and if you've seen this in action, then you should know how it happens. If you've been lucky, if you've worked with a very strong brand, where very large deals can close in a very short amount of time, and that's great. But you can't expect a startup, even in a growth phase, that's raised, I don't know, 30, 40, $50 million, but they don't have that kind of brand recognition. That means that it's going to take a little bit longer to close big deals, because B2B deals are usually won and lost on trust. The products are usually at this stage where like you've raised that kind of money and you're getting growth money. Your product is good enough and has proven itself to be good enough with a certain amount of clients. You wouldn't get that kind of money if you didn't already pass the MVP stage. Yeah. So you've proven your product market fit at a certain level. I think it was Abhishek Lanami from Wix who said, we don't have product market fit yet. Product market fit is it's an ongoing thing. And I agree with that, but at a certain level, you do have it. You know, for certain businesses, for certain companies, yeah, that's my ICP. That's my low hanging fruit. I know I got product market fit. And when I get on a demo call with anybody who's just this job title from this industry, just flows. And when we close at a very high conversion rate. So yeah, so you do have that. And now you're trying to go beyond and you're trying to grow a bit further. Your brand recognition is not quite there. So it's going to take longer cycles. Conversion rates are going to be a little bit lower. And if you've done this before, then you know that's what's going to happen. And then I think it should be fine. First of all, at the planning phase, and this comes down to the master plan for the year or the plan for a specific campaign. Having a set goal for your campaign is important, and it can be a brand awareness campaign. That's totally fine, but you need to come out of the gate saying this is a brand awareness campaign. Not take a campaign that's not working and then say, you know what, we'll just leave it as brand awareness. No, that's not a brand awareness campaign. The messaging is not on point. You have to have a brand awareness campaign from the get-go. And if you have a lead generation campaign that's not working, then kill it. If you need, after you've optimized it a ton and it still doesn't work, or like the cost per lead are just so high that it's just not going to happen. Yeah. At first it's about planning and having a KPI in place. And then once you know what you're measuring for, everything becomes a lot easier, right? Because first of all, from a technical perspective, you can test that specific thing works, and for that specific campaign. So when you've launched your campaign, you've got your ducks in a row and everything, it should work as it should be. And now once you bring everything into your CRM and you have your contacts in there and you have your leads in there and you have your companies in there and deals and opportunities, most CRMs today know how to take all of that and attribute it to the right source. That being said, it's not always that simple because B2B operations are complex. And sometimes we need to have a little bit more customization. We need to have a little bit better understanding. Like, for example, we can have multi-touch attribution. I mean, like a lot of the out-of-the-box CRM attributions are pretty simple. It's not what CRMs are meant to do. So I would suggest, and if you're at that point where you're investing a lot of money into marketing activities, and it's very complicated, and you have a lot of touch points. Let's say you're running ABM campaigns, which usually require a lot of touch points, and you're highly invested into ABM campaigns, and you want to attribute it back because with ABM campaigns, you can have a lot of people in the organization that are all coming into interactions with your content, with your CTAs, with whatever that may be, with your salespeople. And then once an ABM deal closes, you're like, all right, how did this ABM deal even start? We have 30 people from that company in our pipeline. How did everything start? And then after everything started, who was a part of all of this? There's a big mess that makes sense. And in those cases, you probably need help from a third-party software that can help you attribute all of these different touch points and can put a container around all of this and say, like, all right, first of all, this is everybody from your organization. Not always they're recognized. So you have cookie data, not just everybody that's already in your CRM is great, but there's people who never made it all the way into your CRM. So you need to be able to put all that into one place. But it really helps if you have software that is designed for this and can help you do that. And again, once you're at a certain stage where you spend enough on your marketing spend, on your ad spend, and on campaigns in general, then it does make sense to bring in some solutions that will help you attribute it better. When the startups start getting investment money, they basically activated a timer. There's a countdown, and that money is basically allocated to a certain amount of time. And in that amount of time, they need to show growth. And it's usually very competitive, very high growth. That's going to be very hard to achieve. So they need to, I'm just going to talk about the mindset for a second, need to take a deep breath and realize that that's a very lofty goal and we need to do whatever we can to reach that goal. But we got to also look beyond that because startups are usually not going to have an exit within a year and a half, even if that's the runway that you have. They're not going to get IPO'd within a year and a half. It's going to take more time, and you got to look beyond that runway that you just received. So yeah, you got to try and get to that goal, but you also have to build a brand for the future. And that's going to be very important because building that brand is what's going to set you apart. In 2 or 3 years from now, it's going to drop your cost per leads very significantly. And it's about having that kind of patience and being able to have that wall in front of everybody who's asking, where are the leads? Why are there not more leads? And you got to be like, look, 30% of the budget, I'm going to allocate to brand awareness. We're not going to talk about lead generation when it comes to those campaigns. That's not their purpose. The other 70%, we got to talk about lead generation. We got to hit those targets. And how you would start by doing that is first, you either have money or you have time. It's usually a function of either money or time. If you have a lot of time and you don't have the money, usually what you invest in is SEO. SEO is a much more of a longer play for lead generation. It builds your brand and it takes a few months for the traffic to come in. And usually you'll get it into content rather than your actual lead generation pages. And you got to build a funnel from that content to bring people down. So that's pretty much your play when it comes to, if you have a little bit of time, you have less money because you can also generate SEO content. It's not that expensive to generate and it's evergreen. You invest in it and then it just keeps giving dividends over years. So it's a very cost-effective solution. That's usually not the case when you've just gotten a pile of money at your doorstep and the timer's off. So that means you got to invest more in PPC. And if you do that, and especially if you look at Google and Google search, you can either wait till you get to page 1 or you can buy it and you're on page 1 tomorrow. So that's what I mean when I say it's time or money. You can either wait for yourself to move up or you can just put your ad in there. And then I also tell my startups, you're either in the blue ocean or you're in the red ocean. If you're in a red ocean, that's exactly what you should do. Just get those PPC ads out the door right away. Go on Google because people are searching for solutions like yours. You just need to be very particular about your value proposition and your unique selling point. How am I different than X? Figure out how you're different, figure out a unique selling point, put that in your ads, put that in your landing pages, and just go. And that'll be the first thing I would do. And then we can talk about other channels, obviously, and stuff like that, but that would be what I would do out of the gate. If you're in a blue ocean, on the other hand, you're in a bit of a bind because you just got a ton of money, but nobody's really actively searching for your solution right now. And this was true a few years ago for a lot of cybersecurity solutions. And it is the case for a lot of deep tech companies that are offering truly innovative solutions, great solutions that are going to change the industry, but not now, and 5 years from now. But you as a marketer are charged with getting leads now to a solution that nobody really has an understanding of that they're looking for. And now you got to build a funnel of generating demand for your solution. And then the way to generate demand is pretty much all of these. It's a big envelope of a lot of different things. So you're going to have to produce a ton of content because that's how you need to educate. You're going to have to produce it not just on your own website, but you're going to have to partner with a lot of other organizations. You're going to have to do a lot of PR. You're going to have to invest a lot of your budget in getting the word out, that not even the word out about X company, but the word out about this is a problem that the world is facing. And you may be aware that you have the problem. You may not even be aware that you have the problem. And then you have to make them aware that, this is a big issue. It's costing this and this much money. So you got to invest in research. There's a lot of investment that needs to happen within the blue ocean. And it's hard to get ROI on all of that activity within the year and a half of runway that you got. So it's difficult. And then what I usually advise is to find red dots within your blue ocean. If you still have to do lead generation, nonetheless, find something that you can take from what you're doing that people are searching for right now and try and work around that as much as possible. I really recommend not revisiting it and updating it too much because things change and things are dynamic, but that plan should not be. And it's like I say with the definition of an MQL. So let's say we've defined an MQL, we defined an opportunity at the beginning of the year. And all of a sudden we see that according to our definition of MQL, we're getting 50% more MQLs than we thought. And the cost is much lower, but it's not converting into opportunities or something. And then we'll get back for sales will say, hey, look, the definition of MQL needs to change, or the KPI that we have for MQLs needs to change. So no, well, this is the funnel that we have. If we have a certain section of the funnel that is outperforming and another section that's underperforming, we need to take care of that section that's underperforming. If we start changing these things around, it has an impact. For example, if we're running ad campaigns and the target that we're trying to reach is getting MQLs for this, if we now change the definition, then that means we need to change all of our ad campaigns. It's not that likely that we'll be as successful once we change it. And if we see that, okay, so we've changed it, and now it's not working as well, something's gone screwy with the campaign, we tried to change it back. It doesn't really work that way. All of these systems are right now super complex. They work with advanced algorithms. And once you find that product market fit in your campaigns within a certain level, it's something that you just need to let it ride. And I wouldn't go around and changing it. And the same thing goes for the plans. If you develop a plan, let it ride. If there's certain things where you're underperforming or you're overperforming, focus on getting that into the place where it needs to be. If you're overperforming on all metrics, including revenue, I'm sure nobody would come back and say we need to change something. But if there's something that is overperforming and something else that's underperforming, we just need to focus on what's underperforming, and that's it, and not necessarily change the whole plan. You have to be measuring a lot of different stages within the funnel. And that's why you can't just measure revenue for marketing, because then if one thing's underperforming, you'll never know. You'll just know revenue up, down. Where's the problem? We don't know.